welcome to episode 54 of Last Turn. I'm Bart, and joining me today is Evan. What's going on, dude?
Oh, no, not much. Hanging low like Finding Nemo.
Damn. Cool.
I know, right?
So
That's one chill fish, bro.
he's, I guess, fine. This is not a Finding Nemo podcast. It is a Hearthstone podcast, and there's actually been a fair amount of Hearthstone news since we last recorded an episode.
Yeah.
There's like the nerfs that just happened and some buffs that came up, and the nerfs have like kind of happened already, and I think the metagame has settled as a result of that, or at least like settled as much as it can in a fairly young year.
Mm-hmm.
What have you thought about that so far? I mean, I guess we could review the cards that are nerfed. I feel like everybody already knows that, though.
Yeah, we can at least bring them up. They mostly nerfed Rogue. And
Yes.
Rogue really needed to be put under control. So they hit 4 different Rogue cards, which is like pretty unprecedented. I don't know.
They hit 3.
3? Oh, right.
Yeah, the fourth was the
it was
warrior.
4 cards total, yeah.
Yeah.
They we had guessed they would weaken Waggle Pick, which was I think a pretty reasonable guess, but they went with Preparation, Raiding Party, and Evil Miscreant. I think we'd also suggested Evil Miscreant as a probable card that they would hit.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that they hit Miscreant, but like I think that they barely hit it. I feel like the cards, I would rate the card the exact same thing now that it has 4 health instead of 5.
Yeah, that was a very gentle,
incredibly gentle
smack of the nerf hammer.
Yeah, like I kind of get that. I mean, it makes sense. A 1/5 for that much value is a little bit annoying, especially in like a world where there are a lot of 1/1s and you have paladins running around and stuff. So that is that kind of makes sense. Raiding Party, I think that also makes sense instead of Waggle Pick, because like Waggle Pick at 3 attack would have been like a dead card, but I think that card has a lot of potential in a lot of different archetypes. So even though I think it's definitely really strongly on board for nerfing that, and I really thought that they would nerf it by reducing its attack, they ended up going with Raiding Party, which makes this deck a lot less consistent.
Probably makes it just another reason why that was a good pick. They didn't make it a dead card necessarily.
Yes.
But one of the reasons the deck was so good is just it got so much value out of Raiding Party, and it would just get to pay 0 for it.
Yep.
But now they have to pay 2.
Yeah.
They also weaken Preparation, which is that one is crazy because that's a classic card.
Yeah, prep is definitely crazy. I agree with you. Like, I think they got too much value out of Raiding Party. Like between the fact that they could cheat on mana with the Waggle Pick and the Dread Corsairs, and the fact that it's 3 mana for 3 cards, that's that's too much value in one card. It makes sense that got changed. But yeah, prep is huge. This is like, this is a rogue card that's been with us. It's in Classic. It's been with us for a really long time, and it is a card that's seen a ton of play. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is, this is not a nothing nerf. This is on the order of nerfing, Innervator, Wild Growth, or Nourish. In terms of,
yeah, I mean, is it? I guess it's been, I don't know. I think Wild Growth and Innervate have been slightly more ubiquitously played by its class and Preparation.
I suppose so.
I guess more rogue decks that didn't play prep than there were, druid decks that didn't play Innervate when it was 2 mana.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you. I mean, there were older, like, there have been tempo and aggressive rogue decks that don't run prep, although these days, like, all of them did. But I think it's at least comparable because there's been prep-focused rogue archetypes, like, forever. It's basically everything but the fastest or, like, most mid-rangey tempo decks that play prep.
I guess what I'm saying, yeah, so there are archetypes and deck building constraints that were relevant to Preparation. Every druid deck played both Innervates when it gave 2 mana.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, is that it's not like it was played in a lot of decks, it was played in like all of them.
I'll take Wild Growth though.
Yeah.
Because that was it's basically the same difference, right? Only the most aggressive, low to the ground druid decks were not playing Wild Growth, but those did exist, but not nearly as frequently as the decks that were building up mana,
Yep.
and the rogue decks throughout history have always loved preparation and auctioneer and backstab and having this whole mess of inexpensive spells to go with a whole bunch of other really powerful cards to activate combo, to make Van Cleef stronger,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
I think that this prep nerf is actually pretty. This is more than just nerfing a classic card. I mean, I think that they don't take nerfing classic cards lightly, or at least I hope they wouldn't.
Hmm.
And prep, I think, in particular, makes basically all of Rogue's spells worse. Like all the ones that cost 3 or more mana. So Phantom Knife is a worse card now, for example.
Yeah.
And that is like, I think that's pretty serious.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that implication. Fan of Knives is just not as fanny.
Yeah, it's like it's still playable, I'm sure, but it's not as strong as it used to be. And this is going to affect Rogue, forever. But on the other hand, I feel like Prep is one of those cards that probably comes with serious design space limitations on it. Like there are probably a lot, or at least some number of designs where they have like, well, we could make this. Oh no, but then if you like use this card and prepped and then cast this card, like you just win on the spot. And like, okay.
Yeah, pose limitation for the designers.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like the designing around a card like Prep is challenging because it's cheating on mana. We've talked about this before. Cheating on mana is one of the strongest things you can do. So I guess it makes sense that they nerf Prep. Like even if they haven't come out right and said that they're targeting cards that let you cheat on mana, it seems like they have done that pretty systematically, either by accident or on purpose.
We already mentioned both Innervate and Wild Growth this chat alone.
And Nourish.
And Nourish.
And Raiding Party, for that matter.
That's true. And speaking of Innervate, that's kind of what preparation is now, but only for spells. New preparation is old Innervate, but only for spells.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like it. I think it's cool.
Good
if you
friends,
evaluate
Valera and Malfurion.
Definitely.
But now Sprint is worse, Vanish is worse.
Yeah, that hurts Vanish a bunch. That's unfortunate because like that's one of Prep Vanish is like one of Rogue's defensive or combo Rogue's only ways of dealing with or Prep Phantom Knives of dealing with like a really quick, very strong board.
Really wide board.
Yeah. And they don't really have that anymore, or like it comes at a turn slower. So this is a pretty significant nerf. It hasn't hit any like existing decks other than that Tempo Rogue, I think, and I don't know Wild well enough to comment on it, but I'm not sure if Malygos Rogue is like super strong in Wild anyway. So,
but any Gadget Sand Auctioneer Rogue deck is just going to be worse for this.
It's true. And the last one was Archivist Elysiana.
Yeah, the non thing. It's barely changed the card. Instead of being 8 mana, it's 9 mana. What it really means is that you can't use Brewmaster and Banker with it. That's really what they could have, if it were less convoluted, written on Brewmaster and Banker. You can't target Archivist Elysiana has Shroud when you're playing this card. That would have been obviously way too wordy and stupid of a solution for it, but it was not that Elysiana is too good. It's that if you can copy her effect again, it's really annoying.
Yes, I completely agree. I actually think that I'm of the opinion that this change does not affect the power level of Control Warrior at all. I don't think it affects any of its matchup win rates, because pretty much the only time in which Archivist Elysiana plus like Baleful Banker or plus Brewmaster is relevant is in the mirror. And now in the mirror, neither deck can do it. So like if anything, this might improve Control Warrior's win rate across the board, because now it doesn't have to spend a slot on a garbage card like Baleful Banker.
That's a very good point. I guess unless you're like, 50% of the time I'm going to have the coin.
Oh yeah, I mean you could still do that. I definitely thought about that, but like so in 50% of games you're going to have the coin, and then those are going to have to be mirrors that go to fatigue. And that is the case that you are trying to that's the case that you're trying to get with. Like, and those are also games where you didn't have to use your coin earlier. Like, that's the case
Yeah,
you're covering. It's actually a really, really, really small percentage of games you're accounting for by spending an entire slot on your deck.
yeah, you would always have to avoid using the coin that game as well.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like it doesn't necessarily restrict you. You can still just use it, but you have to be in a position where that's viable. Like if your opponent was playing aggressive at all, or just got really lucky with bombs and Elec or something, like, and you had to play for tempo, you might have to blow your coin, and then you don't really have that whole tech slot available to you anymore. There might just be better ways to spend that tech slot.
Brewmaster and Banker ultimately were already like pretty marginal, and like were they actually even like am I how many more games am I winning against the mirror that I'm losing because I have a 2 mana 2/2? Like it was already in my mind questionable if it should even be done.
I think yeah, I mean I think the reason is like if you were playing Baleful Banker and your opponent was a control warrior and they weren't, you were just in such better shape.
Yeah,
Like
but it's not like you can't win the mirror in a multitude of other ways.
of course, but I think like if your opponent plays as conservatively as possible, and just deals with the fact that they have inevitability and never two for ones themselves, like they're probably pretty favored. Even though I don't think it makes it a shoe in. Like I actually do think it's pretty significant in the mirror.
Yeah, it's just like it would be. I think it would be meaningful in the Warrior Mirror, but A, that's not gonna be every game.
Hmm.
And B, if you just know you don't have Banker in your deck and get to use a better card, you can just play as though you're not using Banker with your better card, and that's gonna give you some wins.
That is true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's the opportunity cost of running Banker or Brewmaster, and definitely like there's going to be some number of games where whatever card you replace them with is like going to carry you over the finish line in one form or another. Especially in non-warrior mirrors.
Yeah,
Uh, so I think like I ultimately I'm really really happy about that change. I think it just makes like one particular matchup just at no cost to the power level of this fine deck. It just makes it like far less annoying to play. So that's really
yeah,
good.
you're right. No, like this was a great nerf because it was really just for sparing people agony and annoyance and making really time consuming games that possibly neither player would win. Reducing the odds of that gets an A+
Yes.
in my book. But also, I didn't appreciate what you said before until you said it. Overall, the Warriors probably just better than it was before on average because now against all these other decks, it's not going to be drawing the banker.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all other things held equal. Like it's forgetting if you keep forgetting the fact that like the prevalence of other decks is changing because Rogue is now worse. Like if you forget about that for a second, definitely
Yeah,
I do think that like Warrior actually gets this is a strict upgrade for Warrior because they get to spend a slot on something else. Which is fantastic. That's really good. I think that this was an A+ change. I'm really happy they made it.
yeah, it's also kind of cute if you're trying to play some kind of like Druid Lucent Bark deck and you're using Juicy Psych Melon. You want to
Mm.
have you don't have any maybe you're not happy with your other 9-drop choices. So now instead of Archivist sometimes competing with Lucent Bark, you actually get to draw another card off your Juicy Psych Melon. Uh, I'm thinking about Juicy Psych Melon for a very specific reason. We'll get to it very shortly once we start talking about the buffs, because there's a certain sprayer of Gloop that I'm also looking pretty juicy to me right now.
Yeah, that is a card that I'm glad that they changed it. I've liked that card since it was printed. Not that it was ever particularly powerful, but I always thought that it could do really degenerate stuff, and that's cool.
It does look like it's got something going, right?
Yeah, it looks like you can do something with it. It just has the look of that kind of card. Let's go into the buffs then. I think that we can leave the nerfs behind us. That metagame's already shaken out. Rogue's less common, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, that's basically the whole story. Is that fewer rogues now.
Yep, and some of the more fringe decks and other strong archetypes have sort of risen to replace it. That's that.
Yeah, more King Togwaggles are showing up, and You might find some Captain Hook Tusks showing up as well. Now I saw some of that on ladder. So Rogue is just using different good cards, but it's not having these completely degenerate games with Dread Corsair anymore.
Yeah,
So
that's I think overall good. More hunters are around, doing different stuff, which is cool.
yeah, overall I think uh, another smart choice to trim some of Rogue's power before it just continue to dominate for the next however many months.
I think so too. Yeah, that was good on them to do that quick because it had the makings of something pretty bad, and I'm glad that they didn't just like let this one rot, which they've done in the past.
But they used one of their balance changes, and they restored balance to Hearthstone, which is something that they've done many a time in the past. Usually it's a little bit over a month, a little bit less than a month after a set comes out. They need to do something about what
Yeah,
they've done.
common. Yep.
Um, but then the very next day, something completely unprecedented in the history of Hearthstone was announced. Not nerfs, but
Yeah, buffs.
card buffs. They're
It's so
making some
cool.
cards better.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm sure that I know that we've talked about this Blizzard's like balance philosophy and how maybe buffs don't fit into it or
Mm,
like it appears as though they didn't. We've talked about that in the past. It is incredibly exciting to see them turn on this handle. Like
it's awesome.
I think it's great. I mean, like to their point, it's their game. They can design it. They have access to data that we don't have. I think they are completely within their right, and in many cases, like correct even to not buff cards. If they just continued nerfing forever, I'd be happy. But the fact that they're one showing us that they're willing to buff, and two like giving us a huge array of buffing cards that are like interesting, cool cards. I'm
Mm,
so stoked for this.
yeah, the it seems to be like just a great idea. They probably would have trouble, like they couldn't just buff four cards, right? Using to some extent it makes sense that you don't try to do all your most of your balance updates by buffing cards because that's not gonna, like if one deck is dominating, right, then you can't just buff one other card to make it not dominate. You need, if Rogue is dominating, you need to buff every other class.
Yes.
So it's if you have a problem with certain cards being too powerful or too powerful together, making those cards weaker instead of finding some way to make a whole bunch of other cards better against it makes a lot of sense. Um, and with card creation, they've actually addressed problems sometimes, which is also really great. Like Galaka Crawler
Mm,
was like, whoa, we've been having trouble with Warrior, and instead of just nerfing them or something simple and like that, they printed this card that's going to help us beat these pirates. Um, that's sort of like the same. I have a similar feeling about these buffs, where instead of trying to like tone down, like they could, instead of nerfing way more cards and making Evil Miscreant, a significantly nerfed card instead of making it only slightly weaker, and instead of needing to look at other classes, they are just trying to improve underplayed strategies
yes.
by buffing underplayed cards, and not a little bit. Like some of these buffs are monumental.
Oh, some are huge. Yeah, some are. I mean, if you think of it like in terms of percentage of mana cost reduction and stuff like that, it's like up to 50%, and it's crazy.
It's
Um,
like, and then also they're just adding another card. So this is the buff is called Rise of the Mech, and
mm,
it's supposed to mostly be about buffing cards from um, Boomsday. It's not like it's exclusively mechs. There's plenty of cards that aren't mechs that they're buffing, but I think it's about how some of these cards from Boom's lab, we're not seeing as much play as we wanted, and they're cool effects, so we want them to do more in the metagame. So Doctor Boom took them back to the lab and tweaked them a little bit, and also we're getting a new legendary mech, which is called Snip Snap.
yeah, yeah,
The
he's cute.
It's the eye is a number one, and the A is a number 4, so maybe I'm pronouncing that one. SN1P, SN4P. It's a 3 mana 2/3 with Magnetic, Echo, and Death Rattle. Summon 2 1/1 Microbots.
Pretty decent card.
It looks really, really good.
Yeah.
It's got Echo, which means you can either magnetize 2 of him. Like, you can, for one, you can magnetize himself. Like, if you have 6 mana, you could play a Snip Snap and then play it with Echo and magnetize to itself. Or you could divide them up. And also, if you have multiple mechs out, you could throw one Snip Snap on one and then an Echoed copy on another one. So it's got a ton of versatility. And, 3 mana 2/3, that when it dies, you get 2 1/1s is, like, pretty solid just without the Echo and Magnetic.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this card compared to Haunted Creeper, which is like one of the best 2-drops they've ever made, it's this is pretty close to it. It's just you're getting 1 additional power, toughness, Magnetic, and Echo for 1 mana, which is like really good deal.
On top of that, we've been seeing since the start of the season that Mechs and Magnetic really have some play to them.
Oh yeah, they're so central to this metagame. Absolutely.
They were not really doing much before rotation, but once rotation happened, there's the birth of Mech Hunter and Bomb Warrior, which we saw that coming, and that very much uses Mechs and will use Magnetic when they discover the right card. I don't think Warriors are going to be main decking Snip Snap necessarily, but they're going to be very glad it exists.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they will. I mean, this is like this card is modal because you can play it on turn 3 and it's like a fine tempo play, and then it just sits there and is a magnetic body that dies into magnetic bodies. Or you can play it on turn 9 as like a huge stat bomb that will, create something that like is hard to kill because it'll die into a full board.
Yeah.
So this card is more than just the text on it. This has a ton of play to it.
It's quite versatile, and it's obviously going to go right into Mech Hunter, and it could easily fit into some other decks. There might even be more mech style decks in other classes, like Token Mech Druid is already something that I've kind of seen people trying to do, and this is exactly what you would want in that deck, right?
Yeah, I've seen people running very, very small mech packages in that deck, like mostly things that summon other little mechs that can get buffed by their other stuff. But yeah, I mean, they would be happy with Snip Snap even just without any other mechs in their deck. And if there are any other there are mechs in their deck, it's way, way happier because like cards with Magnetic also kind of have charge sometimes.
That's true. Yeah, the Mecharoo is like a fine example, but maybe even just without any mechs. Like, this guy just is exactly the kind of card that Token Druid would want. If you have more mana, you can play multiple minions. I mean, they definitely like that, and then it dies and makes even more.
Yeah, what's cool is because this has Magnetic, like, let's say you have an empty board and 9 mana, you can choose between getting 3 2/3s or one, like, big ol' 6/9 thing that blows up into a ton of mechs. Like,
yeah, or a 4/6 and a 2/3.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can, that is, this card is modal in a lot of ways. There's a lot of choices you get to make with this card, so I think it's really cool.
I'm a pretty big fan. I think it's pretty easy to underestimate just quite how many different ways it can be used. You know what? There's probably going to be a good deal of like any control deck that was already like it's only mech with Zilliax. Now it'll be a 2 mech deck instead of a 1 mech deck. It's a possibility.
Yeah, it's we'll find out. I mean, this is this card makes a lot of other cards powerful. All other mechs get stronger because this card exists.
Man, how does Galvanizer work with it? Are the Echo copies going to cost 3 or 2?
Galvanizer, what does that do?
That's the 2 mana 1/2. He's very cute. He's a mech, and his battle cries permanently reduce the cost of the mechs you're holding by 1.
I would bet that the Echo copies cost 3.
Most likely.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't believe I didn't remember the name of that card. I played him so much in Mech Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the art. You never read that name.
I like barely look at the art. I like the glance at the card in my hand ish.
It's like, this one doing turn 2.
Yeah, right. I see the two, and I kind of see the picture a little bit, and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy, sure. And then I go back into Brain World where I think of all my plays. Um,
Sounds like a dark place.
it's bad. So we can talk a little bit about the specific buffs. I think that you really hit the nail on the head with all the things you said about buffing in general and how it's similar to creating new cards. I think that this is a completely different lever that they can pull on for balance. I think that like when stuff is too strong, buffing is not really your solution. Your solution is often nerfing. This is just kind of a new thing that they get to do to mix things up. If cards that they want to see play are not seeing play, this is how they do it.
It's kind of like exactly what I would do if I had made a card game and then the cards I liked the most weren't getting played. I would, I mean, maybe I wouldn't do it, but I would really want to just like sneak in and be like, I'm cutting 1 mana off the cost of all these cards because I think they're really cool. And I don't like that. I don't like that I'm not seeing these cool things happen. I had cool things envisioned in my mind. Sometimes cool things happened in playtesting. And the fact that you assholes aren't doing that is annoying me. So I'm gonna fix it by just making the cards better.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. This is an interesting design lever that they can pull. It is meta flavorful in the context of Boom's lab. It's cool. So let's get into it. I think we can go in Blizzard order. And you also mentioned you wanted to start with Druid. So
Hmm.
yeah, why don't you tell us what they're doing to Druid?
They're cutting 1 mana. So almost all of these buffs are mana cost, but not
Yes.
all of them. Gloop Sprayer was an 8 mana 4/4 that copies the adjacent minions, or summons a copy of adjacent minions. Now it's going to cost 7. So it was a very clunky card. It's still going to be a clunky card.
Oh yeah.
It's still very unclear how it should be used or would be used, or if it's even going to be have any competitiveness to it. But as you agree, it's a really cool card, and I'm specifically excited about it. Like I'm actually really really excited about it because it's potentially good in a Lucent Bark deck. Lucent Bark is an 8 mana 4/8 taunt, and when it dies, you can resummon it by restoring 5 health.
Mm.
So people have made decks where you get a Lucent Bark out, and then you play Faceless Manipulator on it, and play a Phlebidnus Floop, and just get a ton of Lucent Barks. Then
Oh yeah, and then you just
between,
can't win. Can't
yeah,
lose anymore.
like aggro is screwed by that point, right? It's
Oh
completely
yeah.
hopeless, and you just have a ton of ways of healing 5 in your deck. Keeper Steladris will actually let you restore 5 twice off of just one of those crystal power things, the 1 mana spell. You can
Mm.
either deal 2 damage or gain 5 health. So you could infinitely Lucent Bark, essentially. Gloop Sprayer would be really good in this magical Christmas Land deck. But one of the issues is that he cost 8 and Lucent Bark cost 8. So if you're using Juicy Psych Melon, you might be getting your Gloop Sprayer instead of your Lucent Bark, which is not what you want. You want them together. Now you can just draw both every time with Juicy Psych Melon. In addition to the fact, of course, that Gloop Sprayer is just going to cost less mana.
Oh, that's really cool. And like you alluded to earlier, now Elysiana costs 9, and that seems like the kind of deck that would love to have Elysiana for the very end game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't played the deck in a while, but when I was playing it at the beginning of the season, I was actually steamrolling Warriors very consistently
Mm,
because they just can't stop all the Lucent Barks.
that makes
And
sense. Like,
and
there's only so much removal they have, and it's mostly for wide boards.
exactly. You are most susceptible to someone killing you really fast. So honestly, it probably won't need Elysiana unless the
It gets,
metagame
yeah.
changes around a bunch, which could easily happen now that all these cards are changing.
I was gonna say, like in the mirror, actually, it seems like Elysiana would be great.
That's true. If
Yeah.
so, I would love to live in that world where Lucent Bark Druid is so common. I need to think about the mirror.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Looking
That's
forward
really
to that.
cool. That's really neat.
The
Um,
the other buff is a lot less exciting. The 10 mana 8/8 Mulch Muncher with Rush and cost 1 less for each friendly Trent that has died this game is now going to cost 9 instead of 10. This is a very gentle buff.
Yeah.
Not really changing the. I mean, you could already make it cost one less by having one Trent die, and now instead of costing 10, it costs 9. That's a 10% change. Very, very slight change to a pretty weak card. I don't see this seeing any more play.
So I have a thought.
Yeah.
The I'm not convinced that um the Hearthstone community solves the metagame. I think that they reach a state that is pretty close to a solved metagame,
Hmm.
or pretty close to a good metagame. But it could be that Mulch Muncher actually performs really well in the existing Druid deck. And one could make the argument that like that deck can go wide really well, but some decks are really good at dealing with wide boards. And it has no way of going tall. And being able to go both wide and tall is something that's pretty good in Mech Hunter, for example. Like some matchups you
Hmm.
just win by making like a moderate or very large minion. Other matchups you win by making 7 really small ones.
Hmm.
Um, Mulch Muncher is like Druid's way of doing both. So it could be that that card's actually already good in that deck, but people aren't seeing it, or like maybe it's a little bit too weak, and now maybe it'll be good enough, or people will start to try it and see that it's good.
Yep, it's possible.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, that's a tough sell because I'm basically saying that like people haven't realized this card is good yet, which is like I think unlikely, but certainly not impossible. Um,
Yeah, not to be discounted.
yeah, I think so. And it definitely has the problem of like if you draw it and you don't draw any other trend stuff, like it's actually just a huge, clunky, really bad card. But in some mashups and some situations, it'll be brutal.
If you start to play a more mech themed strategy and you've got like Zilliax in there, that definitely changes the power level of Mulch Buncher. It's got Lifesteal or not.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm with you in being excited mostly about Loop Sprayer, but Mulch Muncher I think is still worth thinking about.
Yeah, my if I had to bet money, I'd say this is more of a nerf to Conjurer Mage than it is a buff to Druid.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Not being able to get this awesome rush minion when you pop your Sea Giants is, I think, probably more gonna have more impact on the metagame. But it's something I'm pretty happy being wrong with.
yeah, definitely. But we'll see. There are definitely we have to see how things shake out.
The mechs are on the rise.
Mechs are certainly on the rise. So Hunter is up next. So they have Flark's Boomzuka going to 7 mana from 8. So what did this
Mm,
do? This summons like a bunch of, is it minions or mechs from your deck, and then they get rush and die at the end of turn.
they are just any three random minions, and they attack at random and then die.
Wow, that's really funny. Can they hit face?
I don't think so. I mean, so honestly, I've never cast the card,
Same.
and I don't think it gives rush. The exact text is summon three minions from your deck. They attack enemy minions, then die.
Oh, okay. They attack minions. That makes sense.
So I think it's that it's like they have rush, but it's also like you don't get to pick what they're attacking.
That's silly. Yeah, I mean, I think if you set up a deck to cast this, they're going to be big and it won't really matter. But that's also this doesn't seem like a huge payoff to set up your deck on.
It seems to still be mostly a meme. If it were in
Yes.
Priest, that would be exciting because it would be really awesome with mass resurrection and stuff like that. But
Well, to be fair, Hunter does have 9 lives.
this, yeah, so Hunter does have some, and like Savannah Highmane is really sweet with Flark's Boomzuka and Undasta. There's some good stuff. There's no Charged Devil Soul anymore,
Right.
but there's definitely some cool things you can do. Now you can do like there's a card that revives all the beasts that were yours that died this turn. Forget what it's called. It'll be easier to cast that on the same turn as the Boomzuka. So
Yeah.
like there's something if when you play Zul'jin, Boomzuka will be repeated. But I it Hunter's just like not nearly as good at having some kind of sick combo deck like that as Mage and Priest are,
Yeah,
and
that's right. It doesn't
Warlock.
have. There's no Obsidian statue. There's no Eternal Servitude. 9 lives is pretty close though. There's
Yeah,
no. You don't have like a Malagos. Malagos doesn't interact with this in any meaningful way. So, um, I agree that like maybe not. Though this could be, in like a 9 lives. I don't know. Maybe there's something here. I think that this is fodder for the Johnnies out there, and that's reason enough to do it.
I agree. It's got something.
Yeah,
Between Oblivitron and all the other minions we've mentioned, there's there could be something pretty strong. It just Mech Hunter and the Secret Hunter, the hunters that do sort of the traditional going face thing, and just building tempo and winning like that, don't seem like they would want to use this card. So
mm,
that's
I agree.
why it kind of is a long shot, but it would be a worthwhile one.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, in the worst case, this just makes some really interesting decks come around, and like that's cool because people thinking, and then never does anything else, and that's a fine place to be. Like, I think I'm happy about that. I don't think that every one of these cards needs to become playable. If it just becomes more interesting or slightly more playable, that's better.
And we've got two more. Well, actually, this card is gonna be around for two more sets. So that's two
Opportunity.
more expansions. Yep, two more opportunities for big chunky neutrals or hunter minions to make this a different story. Maybe they'll print a Malagos that has Death Rattle and
Hmm.
Prophet Valen that's a hunter card that has Death Rattle, and then you'll be able to 9 lives them back.
Yeah,
That
wouldn't that be something?
that would be now that sounds like a deck.
Yeah, I'm in for that.
Like
So
Death Rattle, you have +5 spell damage this turn, so you 9 lives it back, and then like Hunter's Mark and kill it,
oh yeah,
and then you
and
just
like
like rapid fire for 22 damage.
you have Necromechanic, the other card that's getting changed.
Yeah,
Um,
so that might be the way to do the combo instead.
yeah, with a card that doesn't exist.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows though? I think that you're still not far off base. Like there are lots of interesting things that they can that you can sub out for your Death Rattle Malagos that still make this enticing.
Yeah.
So Necromechanic is used to cost 5 3 mana, 5 mana 3/6 with your Death Rattles triggered twice. It's now 4 mana, so 4 mana 3/6. First of all, is better stats. That's like an acceptable stat line, at least in Arena.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and that effect is good. That's like Baron Rivendare,
Hmm.
and that card saw fringe play at least.
Yeah.
So like, who knows? We have this is a tool, a combo friendly tool that Hunter now has access to. I don't think that either of these cards slot into the existing metagame Hunter decks, but like there are Hunter has a lot of really fun, cool things it can do. It has access to Geppetto and a bunch of other really interesting minions and rapid fire. So there's it can do some stuff.
Hmm.
So we'll see where it goes.
I mean, I think that a good deal of the mech hunter decks that exist would actually want to use this card. A 4 mana 3/6 is really great stat wise. A good card to compare it to, I think, is Houndmaster Shaw, because he was a 4 mana 3/6 with just this, monumental effect while he's out. Actually, is he still legal?
Yeah, and some of the decks actually do run him. Some of the mech decks.
Oh, okay. So, but the thing about the mech decks is that they kind of don't need rush. That's the whole sort of point of the deck. If you just are very good at sticking mechs and having mechs with magnetic in your hand, it's essentially like they have rush.
Hmm.
So in those decks, it does make sense maybe to not use Houndmaster Shaw. But when you're playing against an opponent and Shaw is good in their deck, it's very difficult because he's not easy to kill. And since he's got 3 power, he'll probably be trading minions. It's also kind of like Archmage Vargoth. This pretty chubby 4-drop with a really strong effect is potentially very good. And the mech hunters very often have 1 or 2 Death Rattle cards already out on turn 4. You could have a Spider Bomb. You could have some of the little bombs that deal 2 damage. That's not as big of an improvement, but it's still something. On top of your 4 mana 3/6. They're also getting Snip Snap.
Yeah, so that's interesting point. I mean, I think the points against this is that like that deck already has a bunch of 4 drops that
True.
are hard to imagine cutting. So the one that makes like 2 bombs is pretty good. I guess I could see cutting one of those. And it has like the 4 mana 3/1s, which are awesome, mostly because it's just 3 power with charge.
Hmm.
Um, but this card certainly synergizes with a lot of cards in that deck. So I'm not saying it's not going to end up in there, but I do think that it has a little bit of a hurdle because it's certainly not a shoo-in, at least
Hmm.
not in my eyes. But who knows? There might be a build that runs this. It definitely can get you a lot of value in there. That might not be the direction the deck wants to go, but if it is, that's great. It's also not a mech, but
Yeah,
um,
cutting a mech for this definitely.
it's a hard sell.
Yeah, I've been seeing some mech hunter decks that are using Oblivitron and Nine Lives and using Mechanical Whelp as well.
Mm,
So depending on, is that better or worse? I think it's more of a shit situational deal where
yeah,
that list might work better against certain decks. So it'll of course depend on how the metagame shifts. But if this makes things like high value decks generally better, and there aren't as many super fast decks, it could go right into some mech hunter decks.
potentially, yeah. I mean, Hunter does. The other side of this is that like even the aggressive Hunter decks have access to a ton of death rattles that are good and that you want to trigger.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, we'll see. So that's interesting. I'm glad that Hunter is getting that tool.
it's just like such a cool card, but it was absolutely overpriced. This is the exact kind of thing I want out of these buffs.
Yeah,
Is getting these cards with really cool effects into suddenly very very reasonable ranges as far as what they do
for
for how
sure.
much they cost.
Shall we move on to Mage?
Yeah, so mage. So yeah, the necromechanic buff is pretty reasonable. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about how reasonable mage's buffs were. One of the cards that they buffed is unexpected results, which is not something anyone expected, I think.
Mm,
It summons two random 2-cost minions, and the cost of them is increased by spell damage. So if you have spell damage +2, you'll summon two random 4-cost minions. And now it's going to cost 3 mana. So you'll be able to pay 3 and get two random 2-cost minions. I'll save you the math. That's 4 mana worth of minions for 3 mana,
yes,
which is great.
and
You
it's
always
it's
want to pay less for more if you can.
it's also more than just mana. Like, you have to think about cards like Call to Arms. This is card advantage because, like, 2-cost minions don't cost 2 mana; they cost 2 mana and a card.
Mm,
Um, unexpected results gives you 2 of them, and they're random. So like you can discount their mana cost and their card cost by some amount, but like you're still paying 3 mana for 4 mana worth of minion, 4 mana and 2 cards worth of minions. So you're
that's
spending three
true.
mana on 1 card. That's a great deal.
It's like an arcane intellect, but just straight onto the board instead of
Yeah,
into your
that's
hand.
that's a great way to think about it. Because I think that in the decks that want to play this, that is exactly what it is.
I think a lot of mage decks are going to want to play this card, whether you're like super aggressive or obviously the Conjurer Mage deck is all over this card. It's going to be a great play on turn 3. It works with Khadgar, it works with Sea Giant. It's definitely going to slide right into that already existing very powerful mage deck. I don't know if it's going to. I don't think it's necessarily inspiring anyone to do anything else new, but I think it's going to start seeing a ton of play.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that this is the one that made my eyes pop the most because this card is already, I think, like just on the cusp of being playable. And I think it just needed the right support. And like now, I think it's just amazing, and it doesn't even necessarily need the right support.
Yeah, I'm not really any more interested in trying to make some kind of a spell damage mage. I'm just gonna
No, I don't think so either.
play this card with 0 spell damage and be very happy.
Yeah, I was just thinking about playing it with Sorc Apprentices and Fireballs and Frostbolts. Like
Mm.
that's that's where my mind went with this. But I mean, that's interesting about the existing Conjurer Mage. Like I think that makes Book of Specters worse, but this in some metagames might just be a better card to run than that.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's plenty of lists that don't use Book of Specters.
So, yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. And the other change is Luna's Pocket Galaxy, which changes the cost of all minions in your deck to 1. It used to cost 7, and now it costs 5.
So they're shaving 2 mana off this card, which is colossal.
It's a huge change. Um,
It was 7 mana to do nothing. Now it's 5 mana to do nothing, at least in the moment. But that effect, change the cost of the minions in your deck to 1, has a lot of potential for crazy combos.
Yeah, I mean, right, like you can Malygos, that's a great place to go. Malygos Alexstrasza, and it's not like Mage doesn't have burn spells.
Yep, that's a real easy one. Archmage Antonidas is also pretty unfair at 1 mana.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You'll probably have a Ziliax. He's going to cost 1 when you draw him. It's not even that much of an ask. It just makes whatever minions you're using that much better. It's really good if, like, some of my best Conjurer Mage games is I get a Luna's Pocket Galaxy, and I wind up playing it, and then all the giants I draw cost 0. So
Yeah, that's silly.
at 5 mana, I could see some Conjurer Mages even thinking about using it, which is a huge step forward from being completely useless.
Mm,
And I already saw someone playing Freeze Mage with Luna's Pocket Galaxy, Geppetto, Joybuzz, who kind of does something similar.
yes.
He'll let you cheat your minions to 1 mana. And, Fireballs and Frostbolts and Alex and all that stuff. That kind of Freeze Mage combo deck will be so much better with this improvement.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's exciting. We'll see what this causes. I think that this doesn't look like an archetype creating change to me because it's still pretty inconsistent, the order in which you draw your minions in Pocket Galaxy.
Yeah,
Um, but it does seem like something that can make certain strategies a little bit more powerful, which is great.
yeah, exactly. Because really the only times I was playing this card is when I got it at random off of the Mana Storm guy.
Yeah,
No wait, no, Millhouse Mana Storm. No, what's this guy's name? Uh, Emissary of the Storm. I can't remember. Either
Cat.
way, he gives you random mage spells. So that was the only time I was ever seeing this card. So now,
Oh, the
whenever
two mana guy.
what's that?
The two mana guy.
Yeah,
I know what he looks like. I don't know what he's called.
his name isn't what's important. What's in a name,
No, that's
right?
true.
He
Yeah,
would give me a Pocket Galaxy every now and then. So now the Galaxy I get is just going to be that much better.
that's
So
cool.
it improves anytime you're getting a random mage spell. I do think there's at least a little potential for some sort of combo deck using the aforementioned legendary minions.
Yeah, most definitely. Um, I think so too. Like that's an interesting change.
Yeah, Mage is pretty stoked about the cards that they have improved. Not they're gonna miss Mulch Muncher though.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right,
Um,
shall we talk about Uther and
yeah,
Paladin?
let's talk about him. So the first change is a pretty big one. That's Crystallology. A card that
Yes,
was 2 mana. Yeah, I know you love this card. It was 2 mana, draw 2 1 attack minions from your deck. It's now 1 mana. 1 mana, draw 2 cards.
they cut. Yeah, for one is 1 mana draw 2 cards. It's almost as good as Pot of Greed, which
It's
is
1 mana, tutor 2 cards
crazy.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
this is
get to have some selection in your deck building over what you're gonna get, and it's not like a cost thing. Like some 1 attack minions will be more expensive and have very big effects, and they're shaving it down 50%. That's a
yeah.
50% discount. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is a huge buff.
It. I mean, I always am using Crystology to try and do some stupid, not very effective combo of some kind, whether it's Immortal Prelate or the Undertaker or something like that. Those decks are, of course, going to get better, which is very important to me. But maybe just this is all it took for a more aggressive Paladin deck to have what it needs. It's almost like they're um, taking Raiding Party from Rogue and kind of giving it to Paladin in a way.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to think about it. I feel like this card's really so this does a lot because like it's not just getting it's kind of like you alluded to. It's not just getting 2 small guys, although it can be that, by the way. This can be just an aggro tool. Um, this is getting 2 1 attack minions from your deck. You could just have some like ridiculous, very silly 1 attack minion that's a combo piece for you, and this tutors it right up along with I don't know something else that you want.
Yeah,
Um,
Crystal Smith Kanger, if you're playing some kind of control deck, you basically always want that card in your deck, and you basically always want him. He can come out early and be a very effective defensive minion. He can show up late and help you heal for a lot more health than you really reasonably should be able to.
Yes.
Um, Blood Mage Thanos is also a fine choice.
Yeah, right, exactly. You could just get those utility minions that like you're happy to grab. Or or you're just little aggro guys. I think it's awesome. Like the Argent Squire or something.
Yeah, that was just not really remotely reasonable to be doing if you're playing an aggressive deck to be having this 2 mana card that doesn't
Yes.
actually do anything, and it
Right.
would never get you your bigger minions at like guaranteed. But now being able to like turn 2, you could Crystology Argent Squire. Like
That's great.
that there might be something there. I don't really think there's actually a Paladin deck right now. Besides maybe like Holy Wrath Paladin, but this could inspire something like Mech Paladin.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, it definitely depends on the other cards that are around, and what you can be hitting with this. But like, if there's one payoff card for this, and just a bunch of other cards that aren't bad that you can stuff in your deck that are targets for this, then that sounds good to me.
Yeah, me too. Immortal Prelate is still my first choice there.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, that is like definitely the coolest one. I think that card's still really cool, and I'd love to see it be good.
Me too.
So the second change they're doing to Paladin, this has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
So this is Glowstone Technician is going down from 6 to 5 mana. So this is a 3/4 that gives all minions in your hand +2/+2. So now it's a 5 mana 3/4 with an enormous hand buff attached to it.
Yeah, this card was like, it's already fine. Like, it's not great, but it's pretty strong.
Yeah, this my mind immediately goes to Grime Street Enforcer, which was basically a 5 mana 4/4 that gave all minions in your hand +1/+1 because they killed immediately.
Of course.
And if you ever got +2/+2 off of it, you're very lucky. This just gives them all +2/+2.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait extra time. So in many respects, this is like a better card than Grime Street Enforcer, which is like, I don't think it ever really saw too much play. I don't think there was ever really a good deck for it, but it is good. Let me be assured. I have played with that card a lot, and I really liked it. It definitely did well for me. So I think that this has potential to be strong if there's enough aggressive support for Paladin, and I think that there kind of is, because Paladin has skin in the mech game, and there's tons of powerful mechs in neutral.
Yep, the Technician is going to be great with like a mech Paladin strategy. Enforcer was definitely great, but I didn't actually think of this guy as just Enforcer on steroids, but that's really what it is. It's just more of what was actually good about that card without them being able to stop any of it. Right. Also, what I'm only realizing this now, but it should have been obvious, since instead of needing to spend 6 mana, you only need to spend 5. You can actually spend 1 mana on turn 6 before you play Glowstone Technician. If that card happens to put 2 inexpensive minions into your hand and only costs 1, that'd be really great. Oh wait, Crystology is going to be able to do that now. So that's sort of like I didn't even see that, but those two are going to be really good together. Being able to get the 2 Argent Squires, and then no Righteous Protector, sadly, but being able to get 2 Argent Squires and immediately make them 3/3s is pretty juicy.
I think so too. Yeah, I think that altogether these 2 changes might even just give us the Paladin aggressive deck that we always dreamed of, the one that we've never ever seen before. Certainly not since Angora came out and before. Anyway, I'm happy.
Yeah, he already had something going for him. So once the mechs maybe start showing up in Paladin, it's really good when they have Magnetic as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great with Ziliax.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And we will see how this affects Uther. I think that this might be enough for that class to actually have a viable deck.
Yeah, there's no Paladin decks right now, so this one is hard to predict what those 2 card changes are going to do.
No amazing Paladin decks. There are definitely people playing around with Mech, but I don't think that it's anything too strong.
This could be what it takes.
Yeah, I think so. This is enough to push decks that are on the fringes into play.
Yeah, you can get like a Mecharoo and an upgradable Framebot. That, like, just being able to consistently grab cards like that early on for only 1 mana could really make a huge improvement for their mech strategy.
Yeah.
Galvanizer as well. Yeah, now that I think about it, like you could just very consistently get like the best early game minions between Crystology and those
That's true.
early
It gets
mechs.
Galvanizer. That's crazy. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll be doing turn 2 Galvanizer like at least well close to twice as often as the mech hunters because you can turn 1 Crystology sometimes and get your Galvanizer.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely going to be. That's really good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Priest. I think that these are interesting changes.
Oh yeah. So one of the first cards that they or one of the cards that they're buffing is actually the first card ever with Twin Spell.
Mm. Oh yeah, that's true. You're right.
I think that's one of the reasons that they're buffing it, because like, it was supposed to be Rise of the Mechs. I guess this is still in Doctor Boom's labs, but the card Extra Arms, which is 3 mana, is very clearly an organic spell. It gives a minion +2/+2, and then it adds a copy to your hand of itself. Essentially, it has a different name, so in that way, it's not exactly the same as Twin Spell. But you can essentially play it again and give another minion +2/+2, and now it's only going to cost 2 mana. So that's
Yep,
a
yep.
33% discount. That's a huge discount. Being able to give +2/+2 twice for 2 mana each is really good.
I think so. Yeah, so this is a very big change for this card, and I think that this pushes it into playable territory. So like 2 mana buffs that give like in the 2/+2/+2 range have seen play in the past.
Yeah, Mark of your
There's
Charge, for example.
yeah, right, exactly. Mark of Charge is one. There's like that one that buffs that like I think gives +2/+2 to a minion in Shaman, and like gives you an elemental in your hand if you buff an elemental or something like that.
Yep, blanking on the name, but that card's pretty great as well.
This is similar because instead of like Mark of Charge got you if you buffed a beast you got to draw a card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so instead of drawing a card or getting a random elemental in your hand, you're just getting another copy of the buff. So this is actually on par with those other cards.
Yeah, and they saw play.
Um, yeah, right, exactly. I mean, it depends on whether there's a priest deck of all things that wants this kind of card. Those are, both very aggressive decks. The Shaman and Druid decks that we're referring to that played Mark of Charge and played that elemental buff card. But it's there. The tool is there.
Yeah, that is the big problem, though, isn't it? Priest just definitely doesn't have a deck for this card to go into now,
No.
and as much as I ponder it, I can't think of anything that seems remotely good, a remotely good home for this card, even though it does objectively seem very strong now.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way it's a safe place to put this kind of card because priest is just like this is not what they're about. Um, it's like yeah, this is not what priest is trying to do. They're not trying to play really stupid small minions. I mean, they have one of the best one drops in cleric, and this is a great card in cleric, but it's just the rest of the deck isn't there.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like extra arms on cleric, and I guess it's cute on Acolyte of Pain as well, right?
Yeah.
But
Um.
it
Yeah.
doesn't have the kind of aggressive deck in the current metagame. But there's always future expansions. That's where I think this card is a card for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's neutral aggressive cards, then priest can end up playing them. Its hero power is pretty good for fighting tempo, for board control.
Mm-hmm.
So the second card they changed is Cloning Device, which for some reason costs 2 mana. Now it costs 1. I'm reading the card, and it's like hard to believe that this one's cost 2. It's discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. Again, used to cost 2, now it costs 1. Sure.
Yep. It's kind of cool because since you're discovering, it's sort of like the way this card would give you advantage is by you being like skillful and your opponent has put these cards into their deck, and then you'll have the ability to pick the right one to use it against them, and it'll be you'll defeat them with their own card essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a really cool thing about it. But playing your own cards is just usually way better.
Yeah. I think that this is nice because it's another cheap free spell, which is like potentially useful with Auctioneer or whatever else, Lyra, um, and in whatever format. Uh, but yeah, other than that, I'm not feeling like this is going to be a card that people are main decking.
If Shadow Essence were still around, I'd have been a lot more into it because it would be another way to have a minion essentially in your deck without putting a minion
Mm,
in your deck, so you wouldn't hurt your Shadow Essence targets by putting this 1 mana card in your deck, but you then would have this 1 mana spell which would allow you to maybe get a big minion from your opponent. Or if you're playing against a really aggressive deck, you could just take one of their small minions and just, you don't need all of your resurrects to be super big as long as you can survive the early game. So it would have
that's
been
true.
able to sort of work whichever way you need it to at the time, but without Shadow Essence and or Barnes, of course, there's just no point in
Y-
playing it.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think it's not doesn't really have a home. But I mean, it's a better discover now or a better random spell, and that's cool.
Exactly. And having more cheap spells is always pretty appealing for Priest. So
Yeah, I think Priest has some amount of class identity in being able to play a lot of cheap spells that get them extra value somehow.
I
Um,
don't see it doing much, but we'll find out.
yeah. So next up we have Rogue.
Yeah, they. I mean, well, one of these changes is potentially really big, right? I don't know what to think of it.
Well, which one do you need?
Pogo Hopper, of course.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's hard to know. Pogo Hopper used to cost two. Is 2 mana 1/1 with Battlecry get +2/+2 for each other Pogo Hopper you played this game. Now it costs one. That is 50% reduction in its cost.
We weren't lying. These discounts are crazy. These cards are just flying out of the store.
Yeah, it's everything must go. Um, yeah, so Pogo Hopper is interesting. This was like when this card was first spoiled and first released, people like had day one decks that were doing silly things with it, but it's just not good. Now it costs one,
Can I have some ice
so
cream?
that is an ambulance.
Oh
so
no.
um,
Maybe I should get some ice then instead.
yeah, I feel like they can't give you ice cream. They can give you some other nice stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but so Pogo Hopper costs one now. This is a 1 mana play. It's a mech. You can magnetic this thing.
Yeah.
If that's what you're into. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know what to make of it.
It's a minion that you would get the most value out of it if you could play it multiple times in a game. Both copies of them, you would be running 2 copies, and then you would be playing Brewmasters, maybe, and maybe Daring Escapes, and cards that return it to your hand, cards that shuffle it into your deck. So the fact that it costs one less means every single time that game that you play it, you're saving yourself another mana. So
Yeah,
shaving the mana cost down, not only is it a huge percentage just objectively, but this is a card that would be like just be played more times per game than the average card would be. So this could be a really big, impactful change in Pogo Hopper Rogue. Could actually be something that starts showing up. Like you said, because of Magnetic, you can play it with Zilliax, which makes it so much scarier. The main way that Pogo Hopper is going to be bad is if you put in all that effort to make it good and big, and then your opponent just goes over top of it and goes face and kills you. If it has Taunt and Lifesteal, they're going to have a much harder time doing that. You could also play other mechs that can give it Rush and other qualities, but it's a lot more realistic to play, 2 Hoppers and Daring Escape both of them. That's going to cost 3 mana now instead of 5.
yeah, I agree with that. That like what's nice about this change is it lets you play Pogo Hopper along with its synergistic cards. Not just that you
Exactly.
can play it a turn earlier. It's just that it's easier to play with your Brewmasters and stuff. I agree with that.
And I mean, but it's possible that the ultimate destiny of this card is not even necessarily like a Pogo Hopper centric deck, but Pogo Hopper just gets included because in games that are going to go longer, it is just going to wind up steamrolling your opponent, and it's so much easier to just include it in your deck now. Like playing a 1 mana 1/1 doesn't feel nearly as bad as a 2 mana 1/1.
Yeah.
It's gonna allow you to trigger combo more easily. So it kind of just does a few things on its own. And being able to return a bunch of lackeys to your hand and evil miscreants to your hand is already pretty strong. So it might just go in like a lackey focused deck that already exists, that's already using waggle picks and maybe one or two shadow steps. And, like mostly not change it, but put in Pogo Hoppers, maybe also put in Daring Escape, because Daring Escape can be really good with a board full of lackeys.
Yeah, and I mean, you could also put in cards like Snip Snap, other Mech synergy cards, or like
Mm,
Mechs with battle cries, like maybe even the one that summons the two the bombs. Like
yeah.
these are, that is a way you can build a deck, and that also capitalizes on the fact that Pogo Hopper is a Mech, and like it means that Pogo Hopper is not your central plan, but it's a backup plan that plays well with the rest of your cards.
Yeah, that that's basically what I was thinking with lackeys and just generic battle cries, but also there could be a mech rogue deck in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Snip Snap has Echo makes it particularly good with Daring Escape. Now that you mention that,
Ooh,
because
that's
like
true.
yeah, because you can just play it, a bunch, and then Daring Escape, and now you just have a bunch of copies of things with Echo in your hand, and that's great.
That would be if I were a warrior and my opponent did that, I want to punch myself in the face.
Yeah, right. Because like they clear your board, then you get all the one. Like you do that. You have a bunch of you play one, they like kill it. Then you get the 1/1s. You magnetic one of them. You smack them. They kill it. Then you get the 1/1s. You magnetic. Like you make their life terrible.
Oh my, getting a
Um,
headache just thinking about it.
yeah. That sounds like a lot of pain. So the other rogue card that they buffed is Violet Haze,
Hmm.
which is like probably still not going to see constructed play. This used to cost 3, and now it costs 2 for add 2 Death Rattle cards to your hand.
Yeah, I'm so like it's 2 mana for 2 cards. It's card advantage. It's less expensive. It's a
Hey babe, I'm
33%
recording right
discount.
now.
But I don't think Rogue wants 2 random death rattle cards.
Yeah, I feel the same way. There's not really a rogue deck that wants this.
It doesn't really like.
Sweetie?
It's probably better in Arena, but it still looks like it sucks just as much.
Yeah, I think it's more of like a change for arena than constructed.
That
Um,
makes sense.
but yeah, actually a bunch of these changes look like that, like extra arms or glowstone technician. I think that those are gonna have
Hmm.
huge impacts on arena.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
Um,
that the extra arms is definitely way more relevant in Arena, and I guess Violet Haze is too.
yeah, it's still. I mean, it's 2 mana for draw 2, which is cool, but they're random, so it's not really draw anyway. It's a thing they did. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, at least now you can still play it for 0 off preparation, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that you can.
Wah, wah.
Shaman up next.
Let's take a look at Shaman cards.
So the first is Stormbringer, the biggest evolve ever. Now
Huge.
it used to cost a card that's all play. Used to cost 7, now it costs 6 for transform your minions into random legendary minions.
Yeah, what do you think of this one?
Um, so like I said, this card used to see play. So this is something that makes it a little bit more competitive. Like what's cool is that this doesn't care about the cost of the minions on the board, so you can just have a board that's filled with absolute garbage, and Stormbringer will make it, not garbage, hopefully.
Hopefully. You might also get a bunch of Lore Walker Chos.
Yeah, you could just get garbage still, but you can get garbage that loses you the game. But you could also get like I don't know if you've ever actually fought Gruul, but if you don't have an answer for that thing, it's big.
Oh, the 7/7 that I guess +1/+1 every turn.
Yeah, he's if you don't deal with him right away, he's a real big problem.
Oh my. I don't
Um,
know if I've ever actually faced one down.
I've actually lost multiple games to people getting that card
Oh my.
off of I don't even know what. But anyway, so Stormbringer has this is it's a card that's seen play. It synergizes well with what Shaman is already good at doing, and it even synergizes with the other change they made, which they made for some reason.
Yeah, but is this better than Bloodlust? That's one of my biggest questions about the Stormbringer. Like, sure, now it costs 6, but it still costs more than Bloodlust. And, you know, there's Stormbringer might not win you the game, Bloodlust might not win you the game, but there's definitely an argument that Bloodlust is going to win you more games.
I think I think it's different because this gives your board staying power. Sometimes there are boards where you don't win if you're wide because they have like a big chunky taunt. You bloodlust and just blow your whole board into it and smack them for a little bit. In some games, this is just like kind of another copy of Bloodlust, um, but I think it's a lot more like an evolve that you cast several times.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe the most similar card is Death Knight Thrall, which would do a double evolve on all your minions.
Yeah, and that's another card that's out play.
Yeah, I
Um,
think with that comparison, it is a bit more descriptive. I could see it being, I could see this being really good in some kind of shaman decks. Yeah,
so
I think
another
Murloc Shaman would like it.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of deck would be awesome with it because they have, they're going wide. They make like sticky boards, so they could just kind of trade all their minions, get the stupid 1/1s, and then just turn them all into Lone Walker Cho. Um, but another thing that's worth considering is in Wild, this is now even costed, and even Shaman is a strong deck in Wild.
Ooh, did not think of that.
So that is a deck that definitely goes wide because of its hero power, so wide that it even runs Sea Giants. Um, so this seems like it would slot right in there.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
And that deck definitely had some slots free up after what change did they make recently? Uh,
Oh, they made
I don't,
Flame Tongue Totem cost 3.
that's right. Yeah, definitely. So after that, that hurt the deck a little bit, but it has a couple slots right now that I think are in flux. But Stormbringer could fill one of them.
Yeah,
The other change they made is they took a good card and they made it better.
yes, they
Uh,
did.
yeah, Thunderhead, which is a 4 mana 3/5 with after you play a card with Overload, summon 2/1/1 Sparks with Rush. Already really strong.
Very
Um, Now it's a 3/6 for some reason.
spicy.
So this is great. I mean, if there's a way, like, I don't think that this card gets really any better because it was already like such an awesome payoff. I don't know if that makes you any more willing to play these Overload type decks. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, it definitely means that if you do decide to do that, then it's just going to be slightly better, if not more than slightly better. But it'll at least be slightly better for sure, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. It's strictly better. But it's yeah, this was already a really good card. Now it's better. This also goes well with the Stormbringer change. Just getting a wide board is good for Stormbringer.
Yeah, if you can pump out some Sparks with Rush and then turn them into Gruul, your opponent's going to be feeling pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that this is like these would all maybe go together in the same kind of deck. Potentially, it depends. There could just be some deck that just plays control and plays Thunderhead because it's a good card.
Yep. But even if I could even see a control-ish deck wanting something like the Stormbringer if it is playing cards like Thunderhead and the 1 mana spell that summons 2/1/1 Sparks with Charge, Spark
Yeah, right.
Rush or whatever it's called. If it's using both of those already, then you have the hero power, which makes the random totems. So Stormbringer could even be in there. Could be in just some kind of like mid-range, like token shaman, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. So that's interesting. I mean, also the fact that it's a 3/6 means like the line of just playing hoping it doesn't die is a much better line.
Yeah, you don't you already usually do that because playing the 3/5 turn 4 is like gonna be pretty okay, and if it sticks around, that's really good. Now it's just gonna stick around more often. I think that's a pretty big improvement. I'm very happy to see that because Shaman's definitely hurting right now.
Yeah, definitely. This will help them out. At the very least, these changes should be really interesting.
They've got a bunch of cool cards and strategies, and I'd like to see some more cool Shaman stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So Warlock up next.
Yeah, we got a trip to Yusuke Urameshi's house.
Spirit Bomb. That's also Goku.
Oh wait, yeah, no, I was thinking Spirit Gun. Spirit Bomb is Goku. You're right.
Yeah,
I
I didn't remember Yu Yu Hakusho well enough to know whether or not there was a Spirit Bomb, but I did believe you
There
for what
might
that's
be,
worth.
but that's not that's not the big stink. The big stink is the spirit gun.
That's right. Um, and yeah, and then the most important spirit bomb is definitely Mr. Lend Me Your Energy, Goku.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So, lend me your ear, and I will tell you about this change, which is another phenomenal discount. A two
Yes,
mana spell, Spirit Bomb, that would deal 4 damage to a minion and to your hero, is now going to cost 1. So you can
that's
pay,
huge.
yeah, you could pay 1 mana, deal 4 damage, which technically is already something Warlock can do, as we know. There's Soulfire, but that's going to make you discard a card, so you actually have card disadvantage there. Spirit Bomb is no card disadvantage. It's just a really, really cruelly efficient removal spell now.
Yes, this is a great change for a control deck that doesn't mind taking a little bit of damage. Um,
Yeah,
because this is not like this can't go face, which is unfortunate.
that's like that's the only other strike against it versus Soulfire is that it doesn't give you that reach, and also without was it Amethyst Spellstone in Control Warlock
Mm,
decks, it makes that 4 damage to your hero a little bit less appealing. But I think like an aggressive Warlock deck would be pretty happy to play this. I think the Carpet Zoo decks are gonna start trying this card out at least, if not actually just switching over from Soulfire to this.
yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, the thing about Soulfire is that it's often the lethal damage you need, and it can go past a taunt and stuff. So
Yeah,
it's it's hard to know. Like, I don't think it's a 1-to-1 swap. I do think that this has some potential, but I think it would need to be like I could see this being played in like a mid-rangey deck rather than just a one-drop deck. But we'll see. It is now an incredibly powerful card.
yeah, and just the Carpet Zoo deck doesn't really care about its life total for the most part. If it can properly just maintain the board, then it should be able to win. Um, and that having that control earlier on without the card disadvantage could be better than having the reach from Soulfire. I mean, like you said, you could just run both of them, right? But
Yeah,
I think Spirit Bomb has got a lot going for it.
yeah. I mean, I think that we'll see. Like that deck is already willing to pay card to trade with the Magic Carpet and stuff. So like if that kills something, then this is just kind of the same thing, but it's able to do it more often and kill bigger things. So, but at the cost of some of your life total. But again, that deck doesn't care about it. Yeah, so it's possible that it sees play. We'll see. The other change was Dr. Morgan, which used to cost 8, now it costs 6 for a 5/5 with Death Rattle. Swap this with a minion from your deck.
Gotta get this card in your deck because it's so good now.
So it's in 6 mana 5/5 is a tough sell.
Easier
But
sell than an 8 mana 5/5, that's for sure.
definitely. So there's that. 6 mana 5/5 like with a good enough effect has been playable in the past, but that effect needs to be like Sylvanas. This is not Sylvanas.
Nope.
But it's a chunky thing that like dies into something else.
That's true. It's like
It's like an egg.
a funky Cairn Bloodhoof.
Yeah. But and Karen's a card that's self play, but
Yeah.
so this could play that kind of role, if there's a metagame that wants that sort of card or that has like an annoying enough thing in the deck. But I don't think Void Lord is legal anymore, right?
No, fortunately. That was
Yeah, this
Kobolds and Catacombs.
thank God. Yeah, this would be great with a Void Lord type card. But yeah, in the absence of that, it's hard to know whether this will do the trick.
It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough to sway Warlocks from playing Zoo. I don't know if I don't think this is enough to spawn some kind of mid range or control Warlock. It's still, I think Gul'dan is still probably going to be locked into Zoo type decks even after the rise of the Mechs.
Yeah, definitely. I'm inclined to agree.
All right.
But we'll see. So Warrior.
Yeah, let's look at Garrosh's stuff. I think he actually made out pretty well here.
I agree with that, especially given I think that these changes definitely impact the decks as they currently are.
Which is ironic because it doesn't use either of them.
Yeah, right. So the first is Security Rover, which was a Six mana. It used to cost six, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It was a 6 mana 2/5 with whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 taunt. Now it's a 2/6. That's great.
yeah, just a straight up stat increase to a card that's like decent and basically a great card sometimes to discover off of Doctor Boom's effect or to hit off of Omega Assembly. Those cards they just got better because now sometimes when you get this card, you're getting an extra toughness.
Yeah, and that's a really good sign. Like it's easier to live damage and trigger this multiple times if it's a bigger minion, and it is.
I think that's really the only way that this is actually impacting reality, though. I don't see anyone starting to play Security Rover in their deck because it has one more health. But
No, I agree with you.
when you snag it, it's gonna be better. So, and that's what every single warrior deck is doing that right now. So every single warrior deck, in addition to now being able to discover Snip Snap, will also have access to a new and improved Security Rover. And also, the other card that is being buffed for Warrior is Beryllium Nullifier. He's another solid mech that you're very happy to see off of your Discover effects. He's a 7 mana magnetic minion. He can't be targeted. He used to be a 3/8. Now he's a 4/8.
That's huge.
Yeah, a 4/8 that can't be targeted is pretty mighty. That's pretty hard to deal with for pretty much any class. And since it has magnetic, you can take anything that's on the board and make it some scary, monstrous minion. The worst part of Nullifier before probably was how low its attack is. So this improvement is going to make it a lot better when you play it. But just like Security Rover, I think it's really only going to be getting played when you discover it off of Doctor Boom's effect or play Omega Assembly.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think that this is not the kind of change that like makes this a more playable card. I think it just makes it a better card when you discover it. But so I don't think you're like changing your deck's construction. But I think you're also more willing to just take this given the option because it's so big. Like a 7 mana 4/8's nothing to scoff at, even if you don't have anything to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can magnetic something, it's like great.
Yep, it's especially good with Ziliax, like any mech, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't think Warrior's going to change his decks at all.
Yeah, so for Warrior, the story is mostly remaining the same. It there are a few classes that are just gonna probably do what they were already doing, but even better.
Yeah.
Mages, well, actually, maybe not, not one of them, but Hunter's probably one of them. And Warlock.
Warrior.
I don't. We don't think that it's really going to change up much of what it's doing, but it'll have a better card with which to do it. And I guess Shaman's also still going to be doing mostly the same thing, but I would be very happy to see some Druid lists with Gloop Sprayer showing up that are very, very different. As well as like maybe some Paladin decks, using minions and mechs, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll see. It could be that could be really strong. There's a lot of ways where things can shake out. I think that like many of these changes are transformative for some of these classes, like Paladin in particular.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree with you that some of them are just straight improvements. Some of them will be mostly for Arena, like maybe Priest. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think Paladin is probably the Paladin and Druid are the classes I'm most excited for. Also Shaman with these buffs. I would have really liked to have been excited for Priest, but I am not. Though the winner, the one who's getting the most improvement, might be Warrior, even though they're not going to play any of these cards.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because we don't know how powerful any new decks that come around will be. But we already know that like this makes a powerful deck better, so it's a safe bet for saying that it's a strong thing.
Yep. And because of Snip Snap, all the classes that do more mech stuff better right now are more likely to gain more from this buff. So I think Hunter's also gonna just be that much harder to beat after these buffs are applied.
Yeah, it'll be exciting when this hits. When is this coming? Do you know?
I do not. I kind of was assuming it would be June 1st and that they would just kick off the new season with the new cards, but apparently I was wrong and Blizzard's got a better idea.
Looks like June 3rd. Yeah, it makes sense though, because deploying before everybody goes home for the weekend is a really dangerous thing to do if you maintain like a live service.
That's true.
So I think they're launching on June 3rd for purely practical reasons. I agree with you that they probably would have liked to kick off the new season with it, but we will see this I guess tomorrow at the time of recording, and probably today at the time of listening. If you listen to it on the day it comes out.
That's what we're assuming you do. I mean, how could you wait?
Oh yeah. Where do
I
you
don't
think?
know
What do
how
you think
I'd be
about?
able to wait.
Oh, I mean, I definitely can. I enjoy this. Um, what do you say about wrapping up there?
Yeah, I think that's a good place. We got to talk about all those awesome buffs. And another maybe the best thing about this Rise of the Mechs thing isn't even the Rise of the Mechs and the cards that they're improving. To me, it's the fact that they're willing to do this, which means they might do it again.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That this is very much an experiment for them. This is very much a change in their philosophy, which is fantastic because I think that they're pretty conservative when it comes to balancing this game or even just developing this game in general.
Mhm.
So outside of new card effects and stuff. So yeah, seeing them start to pull on another lever that's been in front of them is really cool.
They could start maybe finding some classic cards or basic cards that have been around for years and years without seeing any play and give buffs to those. I think that's a really exciting prospect. Who knows if that would ever happen, but a round of improving cards that we've just seen for a really long time in our collections but have never seen on the board. The potential that can change is really exciting to me. And it basically seemed like it was impossible for most cards up to this point.
Yeah, it's great to see that. I think that gives the community a bit of hope because between the Hall of Fame and nerfs, especially because they're willing to nerf classic cards, it seems like classic is just becoming the core set is just becoming smaller and smaller. So
right.
It's nice that they've tipped their hand that they can maybe make that not the case.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, these cards are from the Boomsday Project, which is 2 expansions ago. Maybe next time they'll do, 4 months from now, Rastakan's Rumble, which will be the expansion from the 2 prior 4 months from now, or maybe they'll do a different mixture. Maybe instead of being based on Dr. Boom, it could have a completely different theme and boost cards from multiple different sets.
Yeah, could be.
They could do a similar thing, but in a completely different way next time and every time. Like these cards are popular in Tavern Brawl, so we're buffing them. Like who knows what theme they could pick, but it looks like almost any card, as long as it's not being played that heavily, is potentially gonna get a steroid injection one of these seasons. So I'm really excited about that.
Sounds exciting for sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, you guys can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/lastturnhs or facebook.com/lastturnhs. We also have an Instagram, and you can get links to all these places on lastturnhs.com. You can also catch our content on SoundCloud where we're hosted, but we're on places like iTunes and Google Play if that's where you consume your podcast from, which perhaps most likely you do. Yeah, you can also find us on some other services like Stitcher.
We're all over the internet.
Lots of places you can find us. Check out our website. That's where you can get links to all of them.
YouTube as well.
That's right. Yeah, YouTube. We upload our stuff there. I find that YouTube's great for listening to content when I'm doing other stuff. So on my computer, which is all the time.
Yeah, YouTube's excellent.
Yeah, it's a good website.
In case you didn't know, it's YOU Tube, not just the letter YouTube.
In case we have any over 60 listeners out there.
I've needed to tell more than one person this in my lifetime, so
I believe it. Now that you say that, that's pretty funny. I luckily have not had to tell anybody that.
Yeah, and I hope none of you listening ever need to do that either.
Anyway, we will catch you guys next turn.
See you next turn, folks.